from Hollywood, I'm Martin Grove, welcoming you to our Screendollars podcast, Box Office Autopsy. Right now, we'll look at the movie marketplace and analyze how things are going and where they're going, sharing some opinions from my perspective after decades of talking about Hollywood on CNN, Entertainment Tonight, and as a Hollywood Reporter columnist. Moviegoers returned to theaters and to Pandora this weekend for the long-awaited opening of Disney and 20th Century's Avatar: The Way of Water. That ray of box office sunshine kicked up the heat at multiplexes everywhere, although not to the degree associated with Marvel superhero epics. On today's Box Office Autopsy, we'll put James Cameron's Avatar 2 under our box office microscope, and later, in our Oscar Outlook Spotlight, we'll analyze the lack of diversity in the HFPA's Golden Globes noms. But we start today with Avatar 2, which waves of moviegoers opened to $134 million at 4,202 theaters. Media pundits had for weeks been projecting ticket sales of 150 to 175 million, while some exhibitors were overly cautious with predictions of 110 to 125 million. The sequel reportedly cost $400 million or more to produce. Analysts were expecting a worldwide launch of $500 million or more, but global ticket sales came in at $434.5 million. That includes $300.5 million from cinemas in 52 international markets. That total doesn't include China, although Avatar 2 was given a rare green light to play in China. The Middle Kingdom's latest COVID surge held down opening weekend ticket sales, which were $57.1 million, despite projections for about $100 million. One factor that didn't help at theaters anywhere is Avatar 2's running time of 3 hours and 12 minutes. It's a long sit, as movie marketers put it, which generally means one less showing daily. Very long running times can also make moviegoers think twice about sitting through them a second time. Also cutting into opening weekend ticket sales is what analysts say is moviegoers' desire to see it in only the very best circumstances, meaning on an IMAX screen and from the seat location you generally prefer. That's because with Avatar 2, it's all about the experience. Just as it's not a film to stream at home on your couch, at least not for the first time, it's also not one to see in plain old 2D from the far end of the front row. Of course, it is playing in 2D, and that's how many moviegoers will see it, because not everyone has easy access to IMAX or other premium format theaters. The upside to those negatives is that Avatar 2 should have long box office legs, as its mostly adult male audience takes its time to pick and choose its screens, seats, and performance times. That's also what happened with the original Avatar. After kicking off December 18, 2009 to an okay but not sensational $77 million in domestic theaters, Avatar stayed number one for 7 consecutive weeks. In its second weekend, it fell by only 1.9%. Weekend 3 saw a mere 9.5% drop. In weekend 4, it took a bigger but still modest slide of 26.6%. Avatar played domestically for 34 weeks, winding up the weekend of August 6, 2010, with a domestic cume of $749.8 million. With reissues, its domestic total has grown to $785.2 million. Its global cume to date is a record-setting $2.92 billion. With that in mind, exhibitors should feel good having Avatar 2 as a cushion for what looks like it will be a chilly Christmas at the box office. Meanwhile, here's Sigourney Weaver, who starred in both franchise episodes, looking back at working with James Cameron.
I can't imagine any other filmmaker being able to create this from top to bottom with so much detail and bring you so into that world, you know, to create so many stories at once, which is one of the things I admire about Jim the storyteller, doing this sort of, you know, coming of age movie that was also a great love story that was also, and perhaps most importantly, the story of these two worlds colliding.
Looking ahead, Christmas should see families turn out for Universal and DreamWorks Animation's PG comedy adventure Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, opening December 21st at about 4,000 theaters. Hollywood handicappers are projecting $30 to $35 million. Here's a sneak peek that sets up the storyline.
Listen, Doctor, thanks for everything, but I am feeling great. Strong, like a bull, Now, do you know a good place to get some gazpacho?
Please, this is serious.
What is it?
Puss in Boots. How do I say this? You died.
Doctor, please. Relax! I am Puss in Boots! I laugh at death! You see? And anyway, I am a cat. I have 9 lives.
And how many times have you died already?
I don't know. I never counted. I am not really a math guy,
You are down to your last life. My prescription? No more adventures for you. You need to retire.
Me? Retire? Are you the village comedian as well?
Wish should do well since it's the only family film in the holiday marketplace. It's already 97% with Rotten Tomatoes critics and has a 98% audience score, which definitely means great word of mouth. Here's another look to help you decide if everybody's right.
I never do this, but can I get your autograph? Been following you for a long time. Sign right there.
Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death. Bounty hunter.
So I've heard.
You will find your reward does not come easily. This I tell you.
Everyone thinks they'll be the one to defeat me. But no one's escaped me yet.
All right, let's get it over with. Fear me if you dare me.
Also arriving for Christmas weekend is Paramount's R-rated comedy drama Babylon, starring Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, in a storyline set in late 1920s Hollywood as sound came in and destroyed many acting careers. When Babylon opens December 23rd at about 3,000 theaters, analysts are expecting $15 to $18 million. Here's director Damien Chazelle, an Oscar winner in 2017 for La La Land, talking about making Babylon.
Babylon is an original epic set in the early days of Hollywood. It's about ambition, it's about excess, it's about hubris, and it's about a society on the brink of massive change. I basically early on became interested in those early days of Los Angeles and Hollywood when they were still getting built and getting kind of figured out. And but the more I sort of looked at that period of time, the more I became aware of just how crazed and insane the people were and the environment was. It was this sort of larger-than-life assemblage of of misfits of all stripes who kind of came together to build this city out of nothing, build an industry out of nothing. And there's a certain kind of crazed behavior that comes from that. So I wanted to try to capture in a really unvarnished, unsanitized way, just the extremes to which they lived and worked and partied, and what that kind of behavior led to, both good and bad.
Also in our Christmas weekend wintry mix is Sony's PG-13 musical biodrama of Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. It opens December 23rd at about 3,000 theaters, and the media buzz is for $15 to $20 million. As for January, its liveliest title is Universal and Blumhouse's PG-13 horror thriller Megan, opening January 6th, about a lifelike killer doll that's already coming to life on the tracking. Megan's top demo for definite interest is under 25 women who are 8 points over norm. Younger women are typically the core audience for horror genre films. Adult women are its next best demo with 6 points over norm. Men are scoring lower. Younger men are not good at 3 points under norm, and older men are 1 point under norm. Horror films like Megan managed to keep exhibition alive in 2022 through so many otherwise empty weekends when no Marvel superhero epics were playing. Not surprisingly, mid-January's best tracking film right now for the 4-day Martin Luther King birthday weekend is for another R-rated horror thriller, The Devil Conspiracy from Samuel Goldwyn Films. Devil's average definite interest score is 3 points over norm. Its real strength is its appeal to over 25 men who are 12 points over norm. It's also looking good with under 25 women who are 4 points over norm, and we're still 4 weeks out. Devil will have strong competition that weekend from Lionsgate's R-rated action thriller Plane, starring Gerard Butler as the pilot of a commercial jet that's forced by a fierce lightning storm to land on a war-zone island. Plane's average definite interest is 3 points over norm. Its strongest interest is from women over 25 who are 12 points over norm. Next best are over 25 men with 9 points over norm. And speaking of landing in war zones, it's time now for our Oscar Outlook focus on the latest awards front news. This week's new diversity-sensitive HFPA's Golden Globe noms look suspiciously like those that could have come from the old no-diversity HFPA. The Best Picture noms for drama and for musical or comedy and for director show virtually no diversity to celebrate. Only one drama nom has even a female-centric story. That's Tar, the musical biodrama with Cate Blanchett, a Globe's Actress Drama nominee. The HFPA's other drama noms don't reflect diversity. They're Avatar: The Way of Water, Elvis, The Fabelmans, and Top Gun: Maverick. Among the missing films with diversity are Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Till, which has no Best Actress drama nod for Danielle Deadwyler, who's got a good Oscar buzz going, and The Woman King. As for the musical or comedy noms, only one nominee boasts some diversity. The action-adventure comedy Everything Everywhere All at Once, starring Michelle Yeoh, who's a Globe's Actress Musical or Comedy nominee. The other musical or comedy noms lack diversity, including Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, and Triangle of Sadness. None of the HFPA directing noms are diversity-driven, including James Cameron for Avatar: The Way of Water, Baz Luhrmann for Elvis, Martin McDonagh for Inisherin, Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan for Everything, and Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans. Among the missing female directors are Chinoni Chukwu for Till, Sarah Polley for Women Talking, Gina Prince Bythewood for The Woman King, and Maria Schrader for She Said. This week also brought the Critics' Choice Awards noms, which also didn't reflect much diversity, but compared to the Golden Globes list, the critics deserve some applause. Of the CCA Best Picture noms, 3 have diversity: Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Indian action drama RRR, and Women Talking. CCA's 8 other Best Picture contenders aren't on the diversity list, including Avatar 2, Babylon, Inisherin, Elvis, Fabelmans, Glass Onion, Tar, and Maverick. Of 10 CCA directing nominees, 3 can claim diversity: Sarah Polley for Women Talking, Gina Prince Bythewood for The Woman King, and the male Indian filmmaker S.S. Rajamouli for RRR. CCA's 7 non-diverse directing nods went to James Cameron for Avatar 2, Damien Chazelle for Babylon, Todd Field for Tar, Baz Luhrmann for Elvis, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything, Martin McDonagh for Inisherin, and Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans. While neither CCA nor the HFPA deserve great diversity grades, they both should get credit for putting 3 mainstream movies on their Best Picture lists, and they are Avatar 2, Glass Onion, and Maverick. Both groups are sending Oscar voters a valuable signal that it's time to start recognizing Hollywood's broad audience appeal movies. Viewers will root for these big films as they watch 2023's awards telecasts, and that should give the ratings a boost. Smaller films, however awards-worthy they are, that viewers haven't seen, aren't going to help keep awards shows on network TV. And that's it for today's Box Office Autopsy. We'll be back next week with all the Christmas weekend box office details, and as always, we'll keep our Oscar Outlook spotlight on the latest awards news. So please join us again then, and thanks very much for listening. Time now for our film flashback look at what was happening in Hollywood right around now, way back then. Let's set today's time travel dial for December 15th, 1972. The Poseidon Adventure was a key film in establishing the disaster movie genre that was Hollywood's box office equivalent in the 1970s of today's superhero movies. Poseidon, which premiered in Los Angeles December 15, 1972, was directed by Ronald Neame, director of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and produced by Irwin Allen, who was nicknamed the Master of Disaster. Allen, who'd spent many years writing, producing, and directing movies and TV series, was the kind of hands-on producer who maintained total control of his projects. Allen's biggest movie hits were Poseidon and 1974's disaster epic The Towering Inferno. He also struck gold producing such 1960s sci-fi TV series as Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, and Land of the Giants. Poseidon's origins were in a 1969 novel by Paul Gallico, who'd taken a 1937 vacation voyage on the Queen Mary. While at breakfast in the dining room, the huge ocean liner was suddenly struck by a tremendous wave that threw people and furniture across the room, nearly capsizing the vessel. Gallico's novel was acquired by the indie studio Avco Embassy Pictures, with whom Allen made a three-picture deal, starting with Poseidon. As often happens in Hollywood, Embassy later dropped the project. It wound up moving to 20th Century Fox, but if it weren't for Allen, Fox wouldn't have made it. The studio was swimming in red ink at the time, from TV division losses and from a string of musical box office bombs like Dr. Dolittle, Star, and Hello Dolly, that failed to follow in the footsteps of Fox's 1965 musical blockbuster, The Sound of Music. When Fox soured on making Poseidon, Allen kept the project alive by promising to raise half of its sizable, for the time, $5 million budget. He did so simply by going across the street from Fox's studio on Pico Boulevard in West LA to the posh Hillcrest Country Club, where some of his Hollywood pals were playing a high-stakes card game. Allen quickly talked them into putting up money for Poseidon, which went on to gross about $85 million domestic. Allen and his investors also profited nicely from ABC paying $1 million for the TV rights. That was, at the time, more money than a network had ever spent to broadcast a film. When it aired October 27, 1974, it got a 39 Nielsen rating and a 62% audience share, making it network TV's sixth highest-rated movie ever. Allen followed Poseidon's success with 1974's The Towering Inferno, which cost $14 million and grossed $116 million domestic. He'd wanted to film Richard Martin Stern's novel The Tower, about a deadly skyscraper fire, but Warner Brothers already owned the movie rights. Then Allen found a similar novel by Thomas Scotia and Frank Robinson called The Glass Inferno. Instead of making two competing movies, Fox and Warner Brothers decided to co-produce one film with elements of both stories. It was the first time two major studios had ever teamed up to make a movie. And that's it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with another box office autopsy next week. In Hollywood for Screendollars, I'm Martin Grove.